What if the supplement you've been ignoring at the gym isn't just for your muscles, but for your brain? For decades, creatine has carried a stereotype. The powder that bodybuilders scoop into shakes, the secret weapon for pushing out those last few reps. But what if I told you the real untold story isn't about biceps or bench presses? It's about your mind. New research is quietly reshaping everything we thought we knew about creatine. It turns out this simple compound may hold the key not just to power and performance, but to sharper memory, faster thinking, and even resilience when your brain is running on empty. Imagine a world where the very same nutrient that fuels an Olympic sprinter could help a sleep-deprived student ace an exam or keep an exhausted professional laser-focused late into the night. Shocking, yes, but the science is already pointing in that direction. Welcome to the Wellness Way, where we dig deeper into the stories behind health, fitness, and longevity that most people overlook. If you're ready to challenge what you thought you knew about supplements and discover a hidden benefit that could change both your workouts and your life, stick around. And before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you more eye-opening content just like this. When most people hear the word creatine, they instantly picture weightlifters stacking plates on a barbell or athletes pushing through a grueling workout. For years, that was exactly how I thought of it too. Creatine was something for the gym crowd, for the people obsessed with muscle size and raw strength. But then I started digging deeper. The more I learned, the more I realized that creatine has been hiding in plain sight as one of the most fascinating, misunderstood, and underappreciated compounds in human health. And the shocker? It's not just about the muscles at all. It might be about your brain. Let's take a step back. Creatine isn't some exotic chemical cooked up in a lab. It's something our own bodies can make. It's built from 3 simple amino acids, arginine, glycine, and methionine. And your liver and kidneys are basically mini factories that piece it together for you. If you eat meat or fish, you're probably getting 1 or 2 grams a day on top of that. But if you're vegetarian or vegan, you're barely getting any from food, which means you rely almost entirely on your body's own production. That's where things start to get interesting. When creatine enters your bloodstream, most of it ends up in your muscles. Think of your muscles like little gas tanks. A third of the creatine just sits there as is, but the other 2/3 gets turned into something more powerful, phosphocreatine. That conversion is where the magic happens, because phosphocreatine is like a turbocharger for your body's most basic fuel, ATP. Every time your muscles contract, whether you're sprinting, jumping, or lifting a heavy weight, you're burning ATP. But ATP is limited. You only have a few seconds worth stored in your muscle at any moment. That's where phosphocreatine swoops in, donating its phosphate to regenerate ATP almost instantly. It's a one-step reaction, lightning fast, and it buys you precious extra seconds of all-out effort. Now, if you've ever wondered why some people can grind out that extra rep, or hold a sprint just a little longer before hitting the wall, creatine is the reason. Supplementing with it doesn't magically double your strength overnight. What it does is extend your ability to push at maximum effort, maybe turning 6 reps into 8 or 9. And over weeks and months, those extra reps add up. That's where real progress happens, through the accumulation of tiny advantages, multiplied over time. But here's the twist that nobody ever told me before. This same system isn't limited to your muscles. Your brain uses creatine too. Just like your muscles, your neurons burn through ATP when they fire rapidly, when they process information when they're under pressure. And just like your muscles, they can run low. That's where phosphocreatine in the brain steps in to recharge the system. In other words, creatine might be just as important for mental performance as it is for physical. I'll admit, when I first read about this, I was skeptical. It almost sounded too good to be true, like a marketing ploy to sell more supplements. But the science kept pulling me back in. Study after study has shown that creatine supplementation can improve memory, processing speed, and mental clarity. The effects aren't earth-shattering. You're not going to feel like you suddenly have a photographic memory. But the differences are real and measurable, especially in situations where the brain is under stress, long work days, high-pressure deadlines, or nights when sleep is in short supply. And this is where creatine becomes more than just a gym supplement. Because let's face it, most of us don't spend our lives chasing personal records in the squat rack. But we do spend our lives burning mental energy, often running on fumes. Imagine being able to cushion your brain against that drain, giving yourself a little extra buffer when you need it most. That's what creatine offers, and it completely reframed the way I thought about it. For example, think about a college student cramming for finals after weeks of sleep deprivation, or a nurse on back-to-back night shifts, or even just a parent juggling work, kids, and household chaos while constantly running behind on rest. These are the kinds of scenarios where creatine might quietly step in and make the difference between crashing hard and staying functional. Researchers have even found that older adults, whose cognitive performance naturally declines with age, may benefit the most. The improvements in memory and mental clarity are often more pronounced in that group than in young people. It's funny, isn't it? A supplement long associated with bodybuilders and athletes may end up being even more important for retirees and overworked professionals. That's the irony that makes this story so compelling. The stereotype has blinded us. We've thought of creatine as the muscle supplement, but in reality it might be better described as the energy supplement, a compound that supports any system in the body that relies on quick bursts of ATP. And that includes your brain, your nervous system, and potentially even your heart. Once I realized that, the way I looked at supplementation changed. For years I thought of creatine as optional, something you only considered if you were serious about lifting weights or sprinting. Now I see it as foundational, because what's more universal than energy? Every cell in your body needs it. Every demanding task, physical or mental, drains it. And creatine is one of the few tools we have to keep the system topped off. Of course, there are always caveats. Not everyone responds to creatine in the same way. Some people naturally have higher baseline levels, especially those who eat a lot of meat. And no supplement can replace the basics: good sleep, proper nutrition, stress management. But the safety record of creatine is solid, and the cost is low. For me, that makes it one of the easiest no-brainer additions to a daily routine. Looking back, I almost laugh at how one-dimensional my view of creatine used to be. I saw it as a powder for gym rats, when really it's something much bigger. It's about resilience. It's about having that extra gear, whether you're under a barbell or under pressure at work. It's about giving your brain and body the raw materials they need to perform at their best, not just in moments of glory, but in the everyday grind. And maybe that's the real story here. Creatine isn't about vanity or brute strength. It's about energy. It's about sustaining yourself in a world that constantly demands more than you feel like you have to give. When I think about it that way, creatine stops being just another supplement. It becomes a quiet ally, one that's been overlooked for too long but might just be one of the most valuable tools we have. When I first came across the idea that creatine might impact more than just muscles, I couldn't help but ask myself a strange question. If this compound can stretch the limits of physical strength for a few extra seconds, could it do the same for my mind during long, draining days? That thought stayed with me. It seemed almost poetic. This molecule we've boxed into the gym might actually be working behind the scenes in every stressful, exhausting moment of modern life. Think about the last time you felt mentally drained. Maybe it was after back-to-back meetings, or halfway through an all-night study session, or while staring at your computer screen, late at night when your brain simply refused to focus anymore. That feeling of hitting the wall mentally isn't so different from what happens to your muscles when they run out of fuel during a sprint. In both cases, the energy currency, ATP, is getting used faster than it can be replaced. The fascinating part is that creatine plays a role in both arenas. Just as it regenerates ATP in your muscles, it does the same thing inside your neurons. That realization flipped a switch for me. It made me see creatine as more than a tool for athletes. It made me see it as something almost everyone could benefit from. Students, professionals, parents, the elderly, basically anyone whose brain is under pressure. And isn't that all of us? Of course, some people still push back when they hear this. They say, creatine is for gym rats. Why would someone who never lifts weights need it? But that argument misses the point. Energy doesn't care if you're on a treadmill or typing a report at 2 a.m. Your cells burn ATP either way, and when that supply runs low, performance suffers. What creatine does is buy you just a little more capacity to keep going. Not forever, not endlessly, but enough to matter. And the research supports this. Studies have shown that creatine can improve short-term and long-term memory, enhance processing speed, and sharpen mental clarity. The improvements aren't like flipping a switch. You won't suddenly feel like a genius. Instead, they show up in subtle but meaningful ways. Maybe you find it easier to remember details from a meeting. Maybe you notice that you don't mentally crash as hard in the late afternoon. Maybe you can push through a demanding project without losing as much focus. What's especially compelling is that the effects seem strongest when the brain is under stress. Sleep deprivation, for example, is one of the most consistent situations where creatine makes a difference. I've had nights where I barely slept and expected the next day to be a complete disaster. On those days, creatine felt like an invisible hand helping me keep it together, like giving my brain an extra reserve tank when the main one was running empty. It didn't erase the fatigue, but it softened the crash and gave me enough clarity to function. And it's not just me. Researchers have observed similar benefits in studies where people were deliberately kept awake. Those who took creatine performed better on cognitive tasks compared to those who didn't. Again, not superhuman leaps, but noticeable differences that could mean the world if you're a doctor on a night shift, a soldier in the field, or simply someone trying to survive a hectic work week. This brings me to another important point: age. Young, healthy people might see mild improvements, but older adults often see much bigger ones. As we age, our natural energy systems slow down, and that can impact both muscles and brain cells. Creatine seems to offer a cushion against that decline, helping preserve cognitive function and memory. For me, that's one of the most exciting implications. Because while younger athletes may use creatine to gain a competitive edge, older adults could use it simply to maintain independence and mental sharpness. Imagine the impact if more people understood that. Still, some critics ask whether all this is just placebo, or whether creatine is being overhyped. I get the skepticism. The supplement industry is full of exaggerated claims, and it's easy to lump creatine in with the rest. But the difference here is the sheer amount of research backing it. Creatine monohydrate has been studied for decades, and the evidence of its effects on both physical and cognitive performance is hard to ignore. That doesn't mean it's a miracle pill, it's not. But it does mean it's one of the rare supplements where the science actually lines up with the hype. So where does that leave us? For me, it leads to a simple conclusion. Creatine isn't about chasing bigger biceps or record lifts. At its core, it's about resilience. It's about having just enough extra energy to keep pushing when life demands more than you feel you can give. And that's a universal need. Whether you're on a field, in an office, or simply trying to stay sharp as you age, that extra reserve matters. I think about this often when I look at the pace of modern life. We live in a world of constant demands, constant stimulation, and constant fatigue. Our bodies and brains weren't designed for the level of non-stop output we expect from them. That's why something as simple as creatine feels so profound to me. It's not complicated, it's not flashy, but it offers support where we need it most, in the quiet, invisible world of cellular energy. And maybe that's why it feels almost radical to talk about creatine this way. We've spent decades treating it like a niche supplement for athletes, when in reality, it may be one of the most practical and broadly useful tools available to anyone. The science is already pointing us there. The only question is whether we're willing to let go of the old stereotypes and embrace creatine for what it really is. A simple, safe, and effective way to extend our energy physically and mentally. When I think about it, I see creatine less as a performance enhancer and more as a performance protector. It doesn't make you someone you're not. It helps you be the best version of yourself for just a little longer, whether that means finishing your workout strong, staying sharp through a brutal workday, or keeping your memory clear as you grow older. And for me, that's enough reason to make it a part of daily life. When I first started supplementing with creatine, I thought of it purely as a workout aid. 5 grams a day, mixed into my shake, check the box, and move on. It felt simple. Creatine equals stronger training sessions. But as I kept learning, I realized the story doesn't end there. In fact, that's just the surface. The deeper I went, the more I saw creatine not as a gym supplement, but as a practical tool for modern living. Something that could serve both body and mind if used thoughtfully. And that realization changed the way I approached it. Let's talk about how we actually use creatine in real life. The standard dose, 5 grams per day, has been studied for decades. It's reliable, safe, and effective for improving exercise performance. With consistent use, most people see their muscles store 10 to 40% more creatine, which means more phosphocreatine available during those all-out efforts. Over time, this adds up to better strength gains, more endurance in high-intensity workouts, and a greater ability to push through training plateaus. That alone is worth it for many people. But when you zoom out beyond the gym, things get even more intriguing. Research suggests that for brain health, a higher daily dose, around 10 grams, may be ideal. And in moments of extreme stress, such as pulling an all-nighter or going through a period of sleep deprivation, even a single 20-gram dose has been shown to provide noticeable cognitive support. That's not a reckless amount either. People often creatine load at 20 grams per day for a week when starting supplementation, and decades of data have shown that this practice is generally safe. What I find fascinating is how this shift in dosage represents a shift in mindset. 5 grams keeps your muscles fueled, 10 grams may keep your brain sharp, and for me, That dual purpose makes creatine unique among supplements. Most things you take are either for physical performance or for mental performance. Creatine somehow manages to do both. Now, I know what some people might be thinking. Isn't this just overkill? Do we really need another supplement for brain health when there are already dozens marketed for memory, focus, or stress relief? That's a fair question. But here's the key difference. Most of those products rely on herbs, stimulants, or compounds that may or may not have consistent evidence. Creatine, on the other hand, works directly at the cellular energy level. It's not trying to trick your brain into feeling more alert. It's literally helping your cells produce and recycle the very fuel they run on. To me, that makes it far more fundamental and far less gimmicky than the alternatives. What excites me most is the potential for creatine in everyday scenarios. Picture a college student who's been up studying until 3 in the morning. Instead of relying on endless cups of coffee which can leave you jittery and anxious, creatine might help sustain actual mental energy. Or think about a parent juggling kids, work, and household chaos who simply needs to stay functional during long, draining days. Or the older adult who's starting to notice memory lapses and wants a simple, affordable way to support brain health. These are the kinds of people who could benefit just as much, if not more, than the athletes we usually associate creatine with. And then there's the future. I can't help but imagine a world where creatine becomes as common as a daily multivitamin. Instead of being tucked away on the sports nutrition shelf at supplement stores, it could be recommended by doctors to patients struggling with fatigue, or by neurologists looking to support cognitive function in aging populations. Maybe someday we'll look back and laugh at how narrowly we once viewed it. Of course, I'm not naive. No supplement is perfect. Some people simply don't respond to creatine supplementation, and others may not notice dramatic differences in daily life. And yes, there are still limits. Creatine can't replace good sleep, a balanced diet, or proper stress management. But I don't see it as an all-or-nothing solution. I see it as an enhancer, something that stacks with healthy habits to make those habits even more effective. On a personal level, what I value most about creatine is the sense of stability it gives me. When I take it consistently, I feel like I'm giving both my body and my brain an extra layer of protection. My workouts feel more productive, yes, but so do my work days. I don't hit the afternoon crash quite as hard. I don't feel as mentally drained after late nights. It's not dramatic, but it's noticeable. And in a world where so many things drain our energy, even small advantages matter. That's why I think it's time we stop thinking of creatine as just the muscle supplement. It's not only for bodybuilders or athletes chasing glory. It's for anyone living in a fast-paced, demanding world. It's for anyone who wants to stay sharp, strong, and resilient when life pushes back. In that sense, creatine isn't about vanity or performance at all. It's about survival in the modern age. As I see it, the conversation about creatine is really a conversation about energy itself. Energy is the currency of life, the invisible force behind every action, every thought, every heartbeat. And creatine is one of the simplest, safest, and most effective ways we have to stretch that currency just a little further. That's why, for me, it's no longer optional. It's a quiet ally, a daily ritual, and a reminder that sometimes the most powerful solutions are the ones hiding in plain sight. Looking back at everything I've learned about creatine, I realize this story isn't really about supplements at all. It's about how quick we are to put things into boxes, to dismiss them as for those people, not for me. For decades, creatine was boxed in as the muscle powder for gym rats, a stereotype so strong that most people never questioned it. But the truth is so much bigger, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Creatine isn't about bodybuilding, it's about energy, it's about resilience, it's about giving your body and your brain just enough extra fuel to perform when it matters most. Sometimes that performance is on the gym floor, pushing for one more rep. Sometimes it's in the classroom, cramming for an exam after little sleep. And sometimes it's simply the mental clarity to stay patient with your kids after a long, exhausting day. For me, the biggest lesson is that health isn't always about dramatic changes. More often, it's about stacking small advantages that quietly add up over time. Creatine won't turn you into a superhero, but it can make your workouts more effective, your brain a little sharper, and your energy a little more stable. And in the world we live in, where stress, fatigue, and overwork are constant, that little more is not small at all. It's the difference between breaking down and pushing through. What I also take away from this journey is the importance of keeping an open mind. If I had clung to my old stereotype about creatine, I never would have discovered its broader benefits. That makes me wonder how many other simple, safe, affordable tools are out there, hiding behind misconceptions, waiting to be rediscovered. Applying this lesson goes beyond creatine. It's about how we approach our health in general. Are we open to questioning what we think we know? Are we willing to look past the surface and dig deeper into the science, the stories, the possibilities? When we do, we give ourselves the chance to find solutions that could truly change the quality of our lives. So here's where I land. Creatine deserves a place in the conversation about modern wellness. Not because it's trendy or flashy, but because it addresses something universal: our need for energy. It's safe, it's accessible, and it works. And in my mind, that makes it one of the simplest and smartest daily habits anyone can consider. Now, I'd love to hear from you. If you had to choose, would you take creatine first for your muscles or for your brain? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how you see it. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe to The Wellness Way. Your support motivates us to keep bringing you insights that challenge the old ways of thinking and open the door to new possibilities.